Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be installing a second battery in the 800 here, and we've all heard about the dual battery setups, and they really do come in handy if you do your research on them. But looking around, there's not much information on doing a dual battery on an ATV. See them all day long on side-by-sides, UTVs, whatever you want to call them, along with big trucks, mobile homes, travel trailers, whatever. But again, I just don't see them too often for ATVs. So that's what this video is going to be about. I've got the new battery here. I already have it charged up, and I do have the battery isolator here, and the battery isolator, both batteries, the positives will be connected to this. Funny how, if you watch my videos before on this particular machine, I actually relocated the original battery. Get this stuff out of the way here. I relocated the battery, the original battery, underneath the lid here in the rear end. To me, it's just a lot easier to get to that way, wiring up your accessories, etc. And what I'm going to do, I'm still going to keep this battery here for all my accessories. It's got that perfect little pocket down in there for the battery, and the lid sits nice and tight on top of it so don't jump around or anything. I'm going to keep that battery there, and the new battery is going to come down here in the original location. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to disconnect both the terminals, make sure we have no power feed through anything in here so that we don't short anything out. So that'll be the next step here. Now, when I get done with this setup, guys, this battery here will still be for all my accessories, my light whips, my rock lights, and my light bar, all that stuff. And that's what this box here is for. That's for the rock lights, another one there for the whips, relay for the LED light bar. And the theory is you run all these extra accessories, and especially once you get to winching or anything else, you start pulling a lot of power out of your system. And if you ever seen it, it is possible to overload and pull too much power, and then your bike don't start again. And then you're stuck in the woods with a no start. So by adding the second battery underneath, this will be my starting battery. That'll be my backup, or excuse me, my primary to start with, and all my accessories will be running off of this battery here, and this one will be dedicated to the starter. So no matter how much I use my lights or winch or anything else, there shouldn't be any problems with a no start, because I'll have a backup battery just for that purpose. And that'll run the starter, that'll run the generator, and all the primary electronics such as the fuel pump and the ECU, all that stuff that comes stock on the machine. So that'll run everything that CanAm offered on here to begin with. This one will run all the add-on accessories, and that's what we're going for. Okay, got all those separated. Now I need to find a spot where I want to mount the isolator at, and I would like to keep it in here. And looking at what I have, I'm probably going to go here. Let's see here, cutouts around the sides. Okay, so yeah, I'll probably end up going right there. I know you probably can't see that on the camera angle, but I'll show you here in just a moment. It'll still give me room for my wires, my block for the rock lights, for the battery, the relay, pretty much all my extra accessories will all be right here in this box. And looking in here, got 2 short screws and 2 long screws here, and a terminal for the negative. And that's where we'll mount on both the positives from the batteries. And again, that's negative, that'll go to the negative terminal. That's all silicone coated down there. It's supposed to be waterproof. I think it'll do a good job. So let me go ahead and check, see what cables I have so we can actually get ready to start routing the new cables. Alright guys, so I got the backing plate mounted in here for the isolator, and now determining, of course I want to keep the letters right side up. There are individual punch outs here on the sides all around the base of this thing to determine where you want to bring your wires in at. So I'm going to go ahead and knock out the ones that I want out for my wires to come in. You can see it leaves a nice little arch right there for the crown of your wire to sit in there, while the bottom of this sits flush on the base inside the base here. That one will come in from the side. I'm going to bring another one off the top to get to that terminal over there. So now you can see I got that one cut out and that one over there. That'll bring in both of my positives to these 2 terminals here. I better go ahead and take another one out for the negative wire here. I'm just using basic needle nose pliers to pop those punches out. Alright guys, so I gotta hook up the negative terminal first, and again this will be the location for the starting battery that'll start the motor and run the fuel pump, the ECU, all that stuff. And so I've got to rerun a new negative terminal for that because I ran the old one up through the box to run the battery up there. So right now, right there, if you can see that, that is where I will be connecting my terminal. So I'm going to back that bolt out, connect the terminal to it, tighten all that back down, get the cable routed in here. Then I'll figure out my positioning. This is for my positive here. Figure out my exact positioning, how I'm going to run that, get that situated, and then we'll work on the second battery. Alright, so slight change of plans, guys. I decided that I already have enough grounds going up here, and I had another cable that was pretty long, and it reached from here to the engine block with ease. So I just went ahead and went that route instead, and routed it along the frame and then down to the motor block, and that'll give me the ground there, rather than piling up too many in one little area like that. And that's it, hanging down right here. So now that I've got the cables, the power and negative cables there for the battery, for the primary battery, I'm going to go ahead and go back up top and run cables for that battery. Okay guys, so for the secondary cable, going from the positive terminal on my starting battery up here to the isolator, I've got this wire ready to go. I took time to clean up the terminals. This is an old wire that I had laying around from another CanAm. Everything lines up pretty smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and run it through this drill hole that I already put in for the wires before, and run it through here, and this will go straight over here to the isolator box. And then if you look below, I still have plenty of cable left over to go to my positive terminal. Of course, I'll have to route it exactly where I want it, but she's there, she's in place. Alright, so I've got both of my positive terminals hooked up inside of the isolator here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this screwed into the plate there that I was talking about earlier, get that secure, and then we'll actually start back tracing and get all of our wires set and hooked up. Alright, so I got the isolator mounted in the box there, good and sturdy, right beside the control box for the rock lights. Everything's good and solid, so now I'm going to drop the battery back in, reorganize this rat's nest here, and get all the terminals hooked up. Alright guys, so I got the secondary all tidied up. Got the isolator mounted in, hot coming off of that going down through the hole to the bottom. That's not connected at the bottom yet. I've got the other end of the isolator coming out the bottom here, comes around. I have that marked with red zip ties because I ran out of red heat shrink, but that comes over to the positive. And of course all my accessories tied in there. Need to get some new terminals for that. Tied the wires together, tucked them down in there, and got my relay secure over here, control box over there, isolator there. Everything seems to be good and secure. So now I'm going to go to the bottom and finish up the bottom end. And the lid still goes on nice and snug as it should. Alright, so the secondary battery is in. That is actually the starting battery that will start the machine. And the only connections I have on there is strictly negative and positive. All the additionals, the add-on accessories, are mounted up inside of this box up here to that secondary battery. You guys ever get that feeling that you forgot to do something when you're in the middle of a project? Yeah, forgot to add the additional terminal that goes from this battery to the isolator up top. So let's go ahead and get that done. Okay, so last minute change of plans, guys. The original cord that I was using to go from here to the main battery underneath, it just wasn't long enough no matter which way I tried to route it. So I actually took that one off and replaced it with this yellow cord. Same gauge. This one is actually used for a winch. It just happened to be an extra cord I had laying around. So I've got that one hooked up to the isolator. I've got it routed through. The battery is already connected underneath and tucked away. You can see the yellow cord over there maybe. So now I'm going to go ahead and get all this buttoned back up and try it again. Alright guys, so we're looking at this dual battery setup again, and I wasn't too pleased with some of the wires, how they were routed and such. So we're going to take another look at it, see if we can do things a little bit differently, and try to describe it a little more clear and plain for you guys so it's not so confusing. So bear with me. Let's see what we can get for you. First thing I want to point out, guys, is the ground wire. I had ran a ground from here down to the motor block, connected to the other ground wire from the main starting battery. Apparently that's a no-go. You're just supposed to go from negative to negative, not a junction, in this case motor block in the middle, but literally from terminal to terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that, get that squared away. Also, if you look at this here, really not happy with that at all. I do have some more terminals on the way, so I could replace those. Those are just too big for this setup. And another thing is, I don't like having so many wires bundled up on one terminal like this. So I am also ordering a bus bar. I'm going to relocate this relay over here, put the bus bar over this way, run all my wires to the bus bar, and then only deal with the main terminals here for the power source. And those will go to the bus bar, and then all the accessories will run off of the bus bar. So we'll do another video on that later once those parts get here. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and reconnect that negative wire the way that it's supposed to be done. Right here, guys, I'm taking the secondary ground wire off that was unnecessary. I was using this one here as a ground wire off of the secondary battery, and it's uncalled for. This end should actually be connected to the primary battery. So I'm going to back that out, put a shorter wire in, and I'm simply going to put this nut back in here for the main negative off of the primary battery. Alright guys, so this is the one that I'm going with. This is actually a negative cable that I had laying around from a winch, from an old winch that I didn't use the cable on. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one to connect to the negative terminal up here. It'll go through, come out the bottom, and connect to the primary battery. And the primary battery will also have its own negative that goes to the engine block. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on that. Okay guys, so I got everything hooked up. Well, everything except the accessories. It's just a trial run. Got the yellow going from the start on the isolator down to the hot terminal on the primary starting battery. Got the other wire going from the positive on the secondary battery to the secondary terminal in the isolator. Got your positive feed going from the positive on the primary battery all the way up to the solenoid and to the starter. That's why you got two red cables there. Got a negative terminal going from, or excuse me, a negative ground cable going from the negative on the battery to the motor block. And then the second one you see on there is actually going through the plastics up here to the negative on the secondary battery. So everything's hooked up. Got the negative off the isolator hooked up as well. We're going to go ahead and turn the key, and if all goes well, then the light should come on. Just do a trial run. If everything's functioning, the light should go back off. There's our red light. And that should cut off after just a couple moments. Alright guys, so I readjusted the wires. Let's go ahead and try this one more time and see what happens. guys. So the red light is on, which means that it is doing its job and pushing current to the second battery here. I figure I'd get the voltmeter because my old school battery tester, well, it's a cheap generic thing from Walmart, so what do you expect? But anyhow, it's a fair number, and off camera you missed it, but the red light did cut off, which means that it turned off this battery and was only charging the starting battery, doing its job properly. So we are good to go at this point. I think this would be a good time to go ahead and tidy everything up and tuck it all away where it belongs and seal it up. Okay, just to recap before we close this video out, guys. First and foremost, this video is about a second battery install, obviously. You got one battery up here. This is a CanAm Outlander 800 Max XT package, 2008 model. And the Gen 1 Outlanders, they have this pocket in here which sets battery perfect, especially when you put the lid on. It sits right against there, stop it from flapping around or anything. So that's why I chose that spot. This down here is the original position from the factory for the factory battery to run the machine. And that is my primary starting battery. And if you look at an untouched machine, your wires all come out from the right side here. You got your regulator, you got some fuses up right in front of it, and you got two wires here, one coming off of the winch, one coming off of the starter and off of the solenoid. Excuse me. You got solenoid up in here, and it goes from there to the positive on the battery. And you got your negative, goes from the battery terminal to the motor block. Now, in adding the second battery, location chosen, it's in there. In order to do it properly, and we're running it in parallel, not series. And series means you're crossing positive to negative. In parallel, we're running positive, negative to negative. In order to do this and keep both batteries charging and not burn up the system or anything, we're putting in a smart charger, or excuse me, a isolator, battery isolator. This is a product of Quad Boss. Now, first of all, why am I doing this? That's a big question. Why install a secondary battery at all to begin with? Well, it comes down to all the electronics that you're going to run. From the manufacturer, leaving the machine untouched, sure, one battery is just fine. Add a light bar, again, just fine. But once you start adding multiple accessories, you add your light whips, you add your rock lights, or whatever other strobing lights you may have. You add sound systems, especially sound systems. Today's market with the amplifiers, they pull a lot of power out of your system, out of your batteries, your charging system. They really tax it really hard. And then you factor in winching if you have to do any winching. All this stuff taxes your battery and your charging system. Now, from the manufacturer, this charging system pushes out 400 watts max. Max is at about 6,000 RPMs, if I read that right. Sitting at idle, it's not pushing too many watts to charge the battery. Now, what does that mean? Breaking it down, again, you got to look at all the individual components you're adding. How many watts does your winch pull? How many watts does your light bar pull? How many watts does this and that pull? You add all those watts up, and I'm right at the limit for this particular battery and charger from the manufacturer. Now, a few weeks ago, on my first test ride on this, after I did the rebuild, everything was going smooth. Had another guy with me. He got stuck in the mud really bad. And see that picture over here in the corner. But I ended up tying his machine to mine and then had to use my winch to winch him out. Well, the problem with that is, yes, I do have a 4,500 pound winch tucked in there. And the winch did its job pulling us out. But it's a very powerful winch. And it's pulling out two machines. It's a heavy load capacity when it's pulling out this machine and another machine. And you also take in the factor of being stuck in the mud. You ever walk in the mud, get your boot stuck, and then get that suction? Same principle applies when you get the machine in there. There's all that added weight, and suction really helps hold it back. So anyhow, running the winch really hard, pulled out both machines, and it actually killed the battery that day. Had a nice long walk, leaving the machine up in the woods, come home and get a second battery. Got back up there, got her running again, no problem. But I did learn a lesson from that. I don't want to walk out of the woods again, nor do I want to leave my machine unattended sitting out in the woods like that, because we all know there are vultures no matter where you go in this entire planet. They will suck it dry. So with my plan on this, there's my starter battery. This isolator here will break down the difference of charging the backup battery or the starter battery down there. All the accessories, all the add-on lights and whatever that I can imagine to add on will come to the second battery. And so when I'm running that stuff, if anything dies, it'll be this battery, and I'll still have my primary battery underneath able to start the machine, so at the very least I can make it home. But with this here, it can go back and forth, charge as needed. It'll kick in as needed to charge this. In worst case scenario, it'll kick off charging this one and make sure that the one underneath, the primary battery, stays charged. So that's the primary goal, is to keep a primary battery charged, ready to go, so you're never dead in the woods, no matter how much power you're juicing. So that's the whole theory on this, on why I'm doing it. Now the breakdown. What wires goes where and why. This is a product of Quad Boss. You look at it, it's exactly like Quad Boss, inside and out. But anyhow, I explained to you the wires on the back, on the primary battery. An extra negative cable goes from that battery to the negative terminal on the backup battery. Positive, an extra positive goes from that battery up to the smart isolator. Another cable goes from the positive on this battery to the smart isolator. This is where the two batteries meet, and there's basically an on and off switch inside of there that is controlled remotely based on the charge coming out of the alternator, and realizes how much current is left in the battery, if it needs charge or not. So anyhow, there's that. Wire from here to the positive on the battery. Another wire from there to the positive on the other battery. Ground cable for it. Make sure that's tied in. And good to go. It's a very simple install. If you got tools and take the time, it really don't take long at all to do. It's worth it in my opinion. I've got 50 bucks in the battery on eBay. I think I've got 25 bucks in the isolator, 75 bucks. And so the cables I already had laying around, I didn't have to pay anything on that, luckily. So you're looking at $75 to $100 to do battery and isolator. Depending on how fancy you want to go, you might want to look at a better battery or a better isolator, different cables. There's so many options out there that could increase the cost on that, but I got it going in the $75 range, which I don't think is too bad, especially when you think about being stuck in the woods and having to walk out and leave your machine behind. So anyhow, good luck to you guys. If you like what you see, of course, like and subscribe. And I appreciate you guys watching the channel, watching this content. If I miss anything in here that you notice, drop it in the comments. If you know a better way or other products out there, drop that in the comments. If you'd like to know more about it, drop it in the comments. I'll do whatever I can to help you guys. That's what this channel is for, help you guys along the way. Okay guys, so there it is. I've got everything tidied away, as good as it's going to get anyways. Again, hot cable from the secondary battery over to the isolator, negative. A little longer than I wanted, but it was already put together. I didn't need to cut it down or anything. So I just left that coiled there for clean look as I can anyways. That goes down, connects to the negative terminal on the primary battery. One is negative for isolator. I have negatives for my rock lights and my light bar. Again, I know it looks like a little bit of a mess. It's as good as it can be for the time being until I get my bus bars in. and my new terminals and stuff so I can clean all this up. But that's where I have all my electronics put up for now. And again, primary batteries under here. I just got to put the strap back on it to hold the battery down. But she's good to go, so I'm going to go ahead and seal this one up and call it done. Again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, hit me up in the comments below. I'd be glad to see what you guys have to say on this. I hope I helped somebody along the way, but for the love of God, if you do this, please be careful, take your time, so you don't end up with an electrical failure and burn your machine down. I'd really hate for you guys to do that, and of course, you know, I don't want to be the blame of why you did that. So just take your time, pay attention to what you're doing, run all your connectors accordingly, pay attention exactly what wires are touching where, so that you don't have an electrical fire. Good luck and have fun out there in the trails, guys. Little bonus content for you guys here. You ever notice on these Gen 1 models, you don't have anything of an exact reading of what your temperature is running on your motor or your coolant. So while messing around on eBay, I happened to find this here radiator cap that has a built-in temperature gauge, and so far seems to be working really well. I actually was looking for a new radiator cap to begin with because my old one, the rubber seal inside, was a little dry rotted and it was seeping a little bit of fluid out, just a little bit. Well, I didn't want to mess around with that, so I went to order a new cap. And I come across this one. I was like, well, that'd be a cool idea to see exactly how hot you're running. So I went ahead and ordered this one. Now, keep in mind, this was an XT model. Go to put the hood back on, and this here was in the way. Because the radiator cap does sit a little bit higher. You can see about where my fingernail is about where the old cap used to rest. Now you got that additional little bit there. So this part here gets in the way when setting it on. Options, if you look at it, you got these little clips here. You can pop out those clips and take all that off. Now this here, that's all there for your winch, which would plug into here. Again, this is an XT model. That's for the remote for your winch. You can relocate the remote somewhere else on the bike if you like. I've seen a lot of XT models don't even have the remote anymore, for the older models anyways. But anyhow, after you take that plastic off, this is what you end up with. They are all the same thing on the back there. They're interchangeable front and rear. The only difference is this one here has the addition of that plastic, all this plastic here to hold the remote. So it's up to you guys how you want to do that, but I thought I'd share this with you.